This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Who is the other Randy? There's a lot going on in politics right now, and we're going to get to some of the stories leading the headlines, and one that's maybe not getting as much attention as it should. Treason alleged in Canada. Elected officials, MPs, providing personal, private information, compromising Canada's national security to foreign actors. Alleged. This all part of a big report that probably not enough people are talking about. We'll get into that with Charles Adler, but a story a little bit closer to home. As a matter of fact, he's my member of parliament. He's been on the show several times. Randy Bosna, he's the federal employment minister, implicated into what's a pretty bad look, a pretty tough look. And I think you know the background, Real Talkers, because this is Canada's most engaged political audience. But if not, you've come to the right place. Charles Adler and I will get into the ethics commissioners look into this and ultimately what this could mean for one of the only liberal, and I'm not going to call them strongholds, but one of the only liberal seats in the province of Alberta. There's not a lot of them, and it looks like things could change in Edmonton Centre, in particular related to this story. Plus, Alex Jones has agreed to liquidate his assets late last week to ultimately pay some of what the Sandy Hook families were awarded. It means he'll lose ownership of InfoWars. I've been curious to pick Chuck's brain on that. That's all coming up in this episode of Real Talk, which is made possible by our presenting sponsor. It's Alberta's top online real estate school. It's Relo. That's RELO.ca, where better real estate training starts. Of course, at Relo, you can learn more about options available to those of you looking to get started in a dynamic career with unlimited earning potential. You're going to set your own hours. I mean, I guess unless your clients need you. I think that's kind of the whole point, Johnny, is you agree to work tougher hours in real estate, but you're making money the whole time. And of course, helping people find their dream location, or maybe sell it. You can explore what Relo makes available to you, the best of both worlds, a fundamentals course, a practical course, and whether you're looking for the Alberta commercial or the Alberta residential real estate bundle, you can save $100 right now on their website by using the promo code Ryan100. That's all one word, Ryan100, when you get started today at Relo.ca. Charles Adler joins us, kicking off every week here on Real Talk, presented by Tice Automotive Consulting. And Chuck, we got a lot to catch up on right now, including the other Randy. It was a busy week in federal politics.
Yeah, we've got a lot of political chin wagging to do. But before we do any of that, I just want to say that last Thursday, you took an enormous risk. You did something that most hosts, I don't care whether they're doing TV, radio, newspaper columnists, most people don't go to, and it's the subject of suicide. And it's not that suicide rarely gets discussed, but it rarely gets discussed from such a personal perspective. A very good friend, one of your very, very best friends. And I just cannot imagine how tough it must have been. I watched the whole thing. Naturally, I felt for you because we're, brothers in arms. We're colleagues. Mm-hmm. You have been family to me for a very long time. So there's that, but I can generally, separate my personal from my professional. And just as a fellow professional, a hat tip to you. That was enormous. I can't sit here and say that you, in doing that, saved lives, but you certainly did something to inspire other people to have real talk, just like the name of the show, that for other people to have real conversation, because we always talk about our friends, our best friends. The truth of the matter is that very, very often in this life, one of the things that we do not do for our best friends is we do not challenge them. We don't challenge their politics. We don't challenge many of their opinions, especially on controversial moral issues. And we rarely challenge them on how they really feel. We rarely challenge them to a point where they can talk. And regardless of how many causes there are of depression and its worst consequence, taking one's own life, we don't know what we don't know, but we do know this. Isolation is dangerous, and the best way for a good friend to bring another friend out of isolation is to challenge them.
I love that. And thank you for what I know are sincere sentiments. It's, that was kind of like I talked about the Journeyman Club. That's what Laws, my buddy, had named his garage turned bar. And it was just an amazing, we called it our church, and it was like a gathering place for guys. And sometimes it was like runaway bad Christmas sweater parties. And sometimes it was just like two guys in there talking about the most serious stuff. Like most times it was just a wild party, but it was a safe space where everybody could go and actually talk about things. And I love that idea of challenging your friends. I don't know. I'm not tying this and his tragic passing or anything to COVID or the pandemic, but I do think that, I don't know, everything became so polarized over the course of about 3 years. And then I wondered if a lot of people, and I think obviously I'm commenting on my own experience and my own perspective to a certain degree, kind of lost their appetite for like really challenging and potentially divisive conversations. I'm not talking about mental health, but I'm just talking about like the premise of like challenging and pressing and pushing your friends, And to be honest, like, right. I don't think I'm back there yet.
No, you're not. And frankly, none of us are.
Yeah.
Every Canadian, if we're going to be really brutally truthful, and once again, the theme of the show is real talk, and it's there for a reason. There's not enough real talk in the country, and there's certainly not nearly enough real talk in media. Media companies tend to look at who their target audience is and then just kind of massage them all the time. It's, it's become, the business has become a spa rather than a dynamic area of communications, in my humble opinion. So let's do the real talk and frankly admit that most people, whether they're Albertans or people living in other parts of the country or frankly other parts of the world, post-COVID, we have adopted a policy. It's informal, okay? Nobody has signed anything here, but informally we have agreed not to pursue, shall we call it, stimulating conversations with those people who we know are on the opposite side of us on COVID. And by COVID, I mean very specifically the idea of wearing masks, and certainly the controversial, shouldn't be, but it is, controversial idea of taking vaccines, the idea of vaccines being the gateway to participate in mainstream society for those people who, for whatever their reasons, decided not to become vaccinated, felt really alienated, and sometimes got very loud with the mainstream friends of theirs who they were alienated from. And there has been this unwritten deal since then. So it's been enforced for, like you say, for about 3 years now, that we just don't talk about certain subjects with certain friends of ours.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't talk about anything controversial because COVID separated us.
Yeah.
COVID fragmented the relationship and unfortunately, in many cases, eviscerated the most important sinews of that relationship, which ties to challenging your friends on the important issues.
100%. Johnny, I don't remember what the handle was in our live chat it was, I think, on Friday's episode. It was like fried green tomato or something like that, or someone who had like green tomato in their handle. But Chuck, I love this. And somebody, you remember, Johnny, they just made that comment. They said they were just like blown away at how everyone was showing like love and kindness in our live chat during our conversations about mental health and grief. And I was just noticing, even, and don't think we don't notice it to our audience, like when some of our like regular commenters who we know to be, partisan commenters, nothing wrong with that. Talk radio, talk shows suck without partisan commentary. But seeing like real Polyev supporters and like, Trudeau supporters like coming together and wishing each other well and sharing sorrow and sharing joy. And I was like, I think that I've got a lot of room for that in my life right now. And I don't have some sort of like rose-colored glasses type scenario where I believe that, everyone's going to come together and sing Kumbaya and like all of the problems will be solved. But I do think that Amid great tragedy, I'll never recover, obviously, from losing Laws, nor will hundreds of other people. Nothing special about me, except for I just loved him dearly. We'll love him dearly forever. Amid that tragedy, to see people. I mean, I was going to read some of these to you later. You and I can talk politics when we talk in a bit.
And by the way, let's just say it right up front to people. Yes, we're known for talking about politics, and we're pretty darn good at talking about politics. But politics is not nearly as important.
100%, not even close to as important. And the uptake on our mental health episode, not to sound tacky, but the downloads and the shares and the people that are sharing that with their circle and people that are, and we see it because just, here, like a little peek behind the curtain. I mean, I know it sounds tacky because we're kind of talking about the business, but when we're picking up followers and subscribers and getting emails from people we've never heard of, and it's because that message, that conversation is being shared. And that's a very important thing. It's so much more important than Can Trudeau recover from the polls in 18? Nobody gives a fuck.
What do you think of the polls?
Who cares about the polls? Nobody cares about the polls.
And the reason I don't think it's ever tacky of you or me to talk about the business is because our business involves our viewers, involves our listeners, involves those people who are involved in Real Talk, many of them every single day. So it's not just your business and mine, Ryan. It's their business.
100%.
It's everyone's business.
100%. And as the audience grows, the conversation deepens. And so I was going to read you these later, but we got an email from Kane, who sent this in on Friday to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It says, Real Talker here from the West Coast. Shout out to the West Coast Real Talkers. Kane says, I spent many years in Alberta. Really appreciate what you guys do. As a man who has suffered from mental health issues while working in the trades, I can testify to struggles we have in our system. If you're in touch with a team that is starting to address this issue, I would like to be in touch with them because those of us guys that are coming up through the trades, we've finally been able, and I have been personally, says Kane, to identify some of the major hurdles, and I don't think I'm that unique. He says communication, in all caps. He says communication. We lack the vocabulary that seems to be expected from us. We've all become conditioned to act or talk a certain way in these clean professional settings where we can't express our feelings, let alone say, I'm all fucked up or my mind's all fucked, because they'll shoo us out of those offices for, whether it's abusive language or sounding unprofessional or whatever it is. Kane says, at the end of the day, I want to be part of the solution. Despite my mental health hurdles, I've successfully climbed ladders in my trades to positions of leadership. I know I'm brave enough to stand in front of my brothers and sisters to share my struggles, especially if it could mean saving a life. That from Kane. That's an incredible email to receive.
I want to say something about the language there because much of the feedback I get, both professionally and personally, happens to do with my language, and people say you're so lucky to have the linguistic skills that you have, blah 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 blah. And I'm not trying to diminish that, but here's what I am trying to say: for those people who are just really angry at the world, angry at media, angry at politics, and ultimately angry with themselves, and I say this for a very specific reason. Most people do not make that most difficult decision that we've been discussing, taking one's own life, unless and until they're really angry with themselves. And one of the reasons they're angry with themselves, one of the many reasons, is the self-talk, how they're talking to themselves. And usually it's with anger, usually it's with aggression. Those of us who know that someone is angry, maybe angry all the time, maybe angry at inappropriate times, sometimes we feel that if we don't have professional language, we don't have the right to challenge them. I don't care whether you have the vocabulary of a great writer or a cat. It doesn't matter, because so much of language is feelings, and you don't need to be articulate. You don't need to swallow Conrad Black's Roget's thesaurus in order to communicate with a good friend of yours. Do not hesitate to talk to them because you can't speak the way Conrad Black does. You don't need to be articulate to be emotional, to be communicative, and to be loving.
So true. Plus, I've always found Conrad Black to be a little verbose, but that might just be me. How about this one from Kareen? Sorry, had to get in that little shot. I heard him speak once. Actually, I had an opportunity to host a phenomenal, this was one of my great, anyway, it doesn't matter, but a professional opportunity to go to Ottawa, and I hosted a national conference at the dinner. The black tie dinner was, featuring Speaker Conrad Black at the National Art Gallery, which is like, wow. I mean, like, what a venue. And whatever you feel about Conrad Black, he's got his supporters, I last heard him speak with Jordan Peterson at the Tucker Carlson event in Edmonton. Like, the guy can command a room, but he's not. He hasn't mastered the art of the soundbite. He's more like someone's like, I am going to read you my thesis, and at the end of the 40 minutes, you tell me what you think.
And by the way, people, just so everyone understands, people who speak to each other in real life in paragraphs instead of sound bites are being passive aggressive.
Yeah, well, and look who's talking here. Like, when you can nail sound bites and carry an hour of a show, you found your sweet spot.
Ryan, I mean, I don't mean to turn this into mutual admiration.
Nobody wants that.
Both of us are known for. We can speak both in sound bites and paragraphs. Yeah. I mean, I guess we're multilingual. We're cunning linguists, as it were.
Yeah, there you go. Kareen wrote in, I also appreciate, by the way, just to say it out loud sometimes, that you and I can bounce back and forth between talking about life and death and then joking around and screwing around about small stuff. Because this is also how people communicate. And quite frankly, in my orbit, it's how people grieve too, right? So anyway, Kareen says, I listened to your Thursday show. That would have been June 6th. Like so many others, whenever your show is missing from our mornings for a day or two. Charles, for people that didn't know, I got a call right after we talked to you a week ago, last Monday, right after the episode, 5 minutes after the episode, I found out that my close pal had passed away. So it was like Real Talk kind of went off air, obviously, for a couple of days. So Kareen says, I sometimes worry in those circumstances something tragic has happened. It's because, she says, I know from personal experience how quickly lives can change from 1 second to the next by a knock on the door or a phone call. And she's so right about that. She says, I was just feeling the need to let you know how I appreciated that episode with its emotions, its memories, and its complete honesty. You, Johnny, and Jeremy Allen, who joined us, a grief educator, we're providing a much needed example for men everywhere. Talk about your emotions, talk about your struggles, talk about your fears. Just talk. She says, as the wife of a 34 plus year firefighter, I see the job the toll takes, and yet I know that I don't really understand how bad it is. Our first responder communities are starting to recognize the need for supports, but we have a long way to go, and I don't think that they truly know how to tackle the issue of mental health. And so shows like Real Talk can make a big difference in giving men permission to start to lay bare their soul. I love that she said that.
Can I say something personal here that I
let me just finish this, and then I want to hand it over to you.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. She says, my husband and I, because Chuck, I actually talked about, I shared some Jasper memories that Laws and I had made when I got fired from radio. He took me out to Jasper to debrief. And Kareen says, my husband and I, after you mentioned that, are actually headed to Jasper because we need that time away from what weighs heavy in our lives right now. And we'll be thinking of you and Laws as we bike and hike. I love that. She says, thank you for sharing your memories. Every time you think of those you have loved and lost, they are right there at your side. That from Kareen, Chuck.
So we've talked about feelings and how many people, and especially men, have trouble talking about their feelings. And I always feel remiss when we do that, because when I have a deep personal connection to the story, I almost feel morally obligated to discuss it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take just a few seconds here. Because of the life that my father led, and because of the losses that he suffered, everyone knows I have a special feeling for those who have had people in their families murdered. In the case of my father, the murders were part of the World War II genocide against the Jewish people. So his parents, brothers, sisters, nephews, uncles, many people in his family and extended family were mass murdered. Because of that, my father gave me instructions when I was very young to not cry. And I know that sounds a little strange for people, but the reason he wanted me to be able to discipline myself to the point of not crying is because, from his point of view, the war was never over. And a lot of people who have been through traumatic injuries know what this is about. And so he felt that if I ever fell into the hands of an enemy of ours, he wanted me to show absolutely no weakness. He wanted me to show no vulnerability. And the number one tracer of that is tears. So he wanted me to live a life where I did not shed tears publicly or privately. He wanted me to have that discipline. From his point of view, he was arming his son. And so much later in life, when I had some personal issues and I needed some professional help, it was obvious to the helper that I did not know how to cry. So I was in my early 30s when I was taught how to cry.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Man, this is what this show's all about. When I think about what it's all about, it's having real conversations with real people about real things, and you bring it to the table every single time, Chuck. I want to put some of the top political stories in front of you in just a quick second, give you a sec. But I do want to remind everybody that Charles Adler's appearances on Real Talk are presented by the team at Tice Automotive Consulting. You can learn more about what they're doing online at ticeautomotive.com. At Tice, it is Pride Month 12 times a year, but they hope that you're all having a happy official Pride Month through June, and they look forward to celebrating with you all soon. At Tice, they know that every girl, gay, and they has a horror story of an experience at an auto dealer, an auto shop, or with a mechanic. They've been there, and they've heard the stories. You've either felt dismissed, or you've been ignored, or you've been confused, or even worse. At Tice, they want to change that. They want everybody to feel safe and confident in the choices and care that they're putting into their vehicle. So they do the legwork. They give you the information that you need in a safe place. At Tice, your family. You can learn more at ticeautomotive.com. California Closets has you covered when it comes to the best custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home, and it all starts with a free design consultation at californiaclosets.ca. Whether you're looking to reinvent a bedroom, make a workspace more livable, maybe one of those Murphy beds is the solution, whether you're looking to organize your storage system through the house or go baller on your garage, California Closets has the team of designers and installers to make sure that your experience exceeds your expectations. They can work with any vision. They can work with any budget. That consultation starts, a free one, by booking at californiaclosets.ca. Our friends at Complete Care Restoration are keeping an eye on those wildfires, of course, through Western Canada, Manitoba, but the majority of the work that they're doing, helping restore properties and rebuild peace of mind, is happening in their home province of Alberta. That's where they've been providing professional property restoration services for more than a quarter century, and they're ready to respond 24/7. If you find yourself with property damage, could be fire, flood, black mold, asbestos, or other, and you don't know what to do, Complete Care Restoration can help. You'll find them online at completecarerestoration.ca. And a quick note for our friends at Athabasca University, that's Canada's open university, a reminder that no matter what your professional or post-secondary goals look like, chances are there's a fit for you with the hundreds of programs and courses at Athabasca University. They offer world-class accredited online degrees and courses. That means that the only commute is to your device. Check out their wide variety of distance learning programs and courses at athabascau.ca. Charles Adler, our guest, the first episode of every week here on Real Talk, presented by Tice Automotive Consulting. Well, we'll talk Canadian politics in just a little bit, but I'm curious to know where you land on the story that broke late last week on Thursday. Alex Jones, the founder of InfoWars and America's most notorious conspiracy theorist, has agreed to liquidate his assets to pay the Sandy Hook families. It will likely end his ownership of the company, InfoWars, that he founded back in the 1990s. Your thoughts?
I believe in democracy and freedom of expression, all the things that I think most Canadians and Americans believe in. So I don't think that someone should have their microphone and camera taken away from them, their InfoWars show taken away from them. But there's always a big fat but in these declarations. If we had freedom of expression curbed in the interest of decency, okay, like, how about decency to people who have had their children murdered and not telling the world that the children were not murdered and not telling the world that the whole thing is just a conspiracy, and not telling that the parents, the grieving parents, are actually actors, because that's what Alex Jones did. So if we had freedom of expression curbed in the interests of decency, when someone is behaving in a grossly indecent manner to their fellow human beings, you talked about kindness for a few moments ago. This is the absolute antithesis of kindness. This is, I'll use the word that I don't use very often, this is evil. So if we had a curbing of freedom of expression and a removal of microphones and cameras from those people who participate in evil, if we had that, I would support Alex Jones facing that kind of consequence. He doesn't face that consequence. He can continue to operate, but he can't continue to operate with as much money as he's had. He has made a fortune being evil. He's made a fortune being a liar. He's made a fortune defaming and libeling people, and even attacking people who have just lost their children to mass murder in Connecticut. And so Alex Jones isn't having his cameras removed, isn't having his microphone taken away, isn't having his molars removed, much as though some of us would love to do that with someone like Alex Jones, isn't having his larynx extracted. All he's losing is money.
Yeah, this isn't. This is not like Alex Jones losing his freedom of speech. This is more like this is. I think the phrase that's become very popular these days. Fuck around and find out. Was it Evander Kane on the Oilers that made that famous, or someone before him, Johnny?
I believe it's been around for
FAFO
centuries.
FAFO. The premise of it has been around forever. This is an FAFO situation, which is basically like you're welcome to start a company. He obviously, just like we did, I mean, you anybody can get a microphone and streaming software and go put a show out there, and he grew it to an enormous audience, which also still blows my mind when you're talking about gay frogs and lizard people and the truly wacky and wild conspiracy theories, and you have an audience of millions. What does that say? But this isn't him losing his freedom. This is you hear that all the time. People say freedom of speech, not freedom from consequence. And there's no freedom from consequence here. The consequence is that he owes more than $1 billion to the Sandy Hook families, and he hasn't paid a red cent.
No, he hasn't. And, we talked about the important subject earlier of mental health and the extent that people go to when they do not have the kind of mental health that we would love for everyone to have, and the consequences of that. I can't tell you that people who listen to stories of the lizard people and all the other stuff that Alex Jones does, I can't tell you for a fact that those people are angry at the world and themselves. I can't tell you for a fact that all of them are isolated. And I can't tell you for a fact that some of them are harming their families. And yes, some of them are also harming themselves. But I would be astonished, absolutely astonished, if Alex Jones wasn't triggering, and I'll use that word for a reason. I'd be astonished if Alex Jones wasn't triggering that kind of dysfunction.
Yeah, the liquidation of his assets doesn't mean that InfoWars will be brought to its knees. I'm referencing CNN's reporting on this. It doesn't mean that InfoWars gets shut down. There are a number of possible outcomes. The court-appointed trustee in this case could sell the business to another owner. I actually think that there'd be a significant market for that. Don't you? I mean, I can think of some Canadian media entrepreneurs that would be very interested in buying InfoWars. I don't know if they'd have the dough that it would take. I don't know what the market, what's the going rate.
InfoWars is him. I mean,
but he's not prohibited from hosting InfoWars.
No,
right?
no. I mean, if they buy the brand and then they hire him,
yes,
and pay him an outrageous
money, pay him $7 million a year or whatever.
They can do that, and it would be I guess a profit center. And if some people don't mind having their names associated with Alex Jones, and clearly,
well, there are people that don't mind. Like Ezra Levant guest hosts his show all the time. The founder of Rebel Media. Like, not only is he not afraid to align himself with him, he's thrilled. So I don't know. I don't say that name a lot on this show, but I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody there. The opportunism in media now is like, I mean, everybody sees it. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. There are people that go on and just say I mean, I don't even believe that half these guys are speaking to their own conviction. I don't believe that.
Well, Tucker Carlson.
People, Tucker Carlson's a classic example. I don't believe
he's
that.
a talented guy and a successful guy, and
yeah.
I don't agree with much of what he does and his motivations and blah blah blah. But who cares?
I think there's a market for it.
Tucker Carlson mentions Alex Jones in a complimentary way. Joe Rogan, who I guess is the #1 podcaster on the planet, he mentions Alex Jones in a complimentary way. So Alex Jones has his friends, and any of these companies associated with any of these people that we're talking to and talking about, any of them could buy InfoWars and could replenish Alex Jones funds. In fact, this prediction's the easiest prediction I could ever make. No matter what he pays out to the Sandy Hook families, he'll get that money back, being Alex Jones.
Mm-hmm. He could be done, though. He did a show on June 3rd, and he was like, this is a picture from it. He was crying. I believe that was a Saturday, June 3rd. And he said, I'm out of bullets. I'm out of money. I'm out of my dad's money. And he would help me out when I was in trouble. I'm out of options, and that's where we are at.
And then and then look at this QR code and please send me all of your money.
Please buy some end of the world
vitamin packs. I'm not sure. I believe. Like, I'm not. Let's keep in mind. Like
Oral Roberts.
The
great evangelist Oral Roberts. I remember watching him as a kid, and he, I think, was telling his followers at one point that God was, calling him home, and he needed money. He needed money, and they sent him money, and God called him home several years later. Several hundreds of millions of dollars later, I guess God did call him home. And I remember seeing Jimmy Swaggart, another Bible thumper, crying.
Yeah.
And his tears all of a sudden created money. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that works. You start sobbing. I mean, I told you earlier that I needed to be taught how to cry. And that's a whole different story. But the point is, these people didn't have to learn to cry, but these people learned that crying in certain circumstances at certain intersections of your life and or business could create a lot of money.
Yeah.
I have sinned.
It didn't even mention Jim Baker. We could do a whole show just on televangelist tears. I think can you imagine the the thumbnail design on televangelist tears?
Oh yeah.
I remember, and these were always just sort of more, whatever. People will never believe this is unplanned conversation. Peter Popoff was always my favorite televangelist because he was the only one that offered the miracle spring water. And you could write in and donate as you feel led, and you could they would send you some miracle spring water with which you could manifest your own miracles. I think for a small monthly contribution of whatever that was. I think Peter Popoff is actually still at it, man.
Could we find anything related to Smokey Robinson and the miracles, whether it's video or anything else that we could put up? I wonder if Johnny could get some Smokey Robinson and the miracles. Tears of a Clown.
Yeah,
want to take this to
we can't afford we can't afford the royalties, and YouTube will shut us down.
All right,
we always have these great ideas to use content that we don't have ownership of. And
fortunately, Ryan, you and I know how to speak visually, so we can create the word pictures and not have to pay Smokey or Motown or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember I was very young, and this was before I got help for the Tears business. And I remember how moved I was listening to Smokey Robinson because he was a great performer, of course, and I was doing my bit to perform in the industry that everyone knows I worked in for my entire adult life. And I just found that song to be so packed with truth. So for anyone who wants to go to YouTube or Spotify or whatever and access it and just listen to the lyric when Smokey Robinson talks about the tears of a clown, someone who is paid to entertain, he's singing, he's dancing, he's doing all those marvelous things that get millions of people to get wrapped up in his artistry. And yes, he's a clown, he's an entertainer, but when no one's around, the tears are shed and they come down like Niagara Falls. And that is the case, not in the case of every entertainer, but since once again we're doing real talk here, we should say that those people that you see on camera, on stage, on radio. You see them in your mind's eye. Many of these people who are excellent performers, and many of these people who know how to make people, yes, laugh and cry and send money and do all kinds of other things. Many of these people who are laughing on camera, who are smiling like the sun itself, the moment they have to go behind stage, the moment they are all in their lonesome in their dressing room, the tears come down. Some of them don't know how to cry very well for all sorts of reasons. They may be suppressed and repressed and compressed and all those other things, but the sadness overwhelms them. It is an incredibly difficult journey for many people, regardless of the money that's being made and all the things that we talk about, the toys, the groupies, the casual nature of many relationships that they were involved in, that they wouldn't be if they were not entertainers. Put aside all of that stuff. And I'm talking about people like Elvis Presley himself, one of the greatest entertainers of all time. When the curtain comes down, so do the tears.
I want to let that sit there for a second before I go back to poking fun at televangelists.
Oh my gosh.
Because
there's a long list.
Charles just offered us like profound thoughts, and I want to respect that for a second. Has enough time now passed? Can I go back to making fun of televangelists for a second, Charles? Because at the end of the day, all we're talking about in the tears of the clown is the tears streaming down the face of the people that will do anything for money, right? So that's what we're talking about. And I just came to a realization that I put some of my friends potentially in grave danger 25 years ago when I reached out. And folks, friends, don't send Peter Popoff your money. Don't do it. Don't do it. But I wrote in as a joke because we would always watch it on late night TV. We're at university at the time, and I wanted some Miracle Spring Water because I had big plans for it. But I did not send them any money. They will still send it to you without the money. And so I'm now checking on this 25 years later as we speak to you, Charles Adler, the second week of June of 2024, 25 years after my prank with the Peter Popoff Miracle Spring Water. And what do I see here, Johnny, on his website? I'm not saying the name. Friends, don't send this guy your money. But he does still have Miracle Spring Water on his website. But would you look at this? When I click on it, what's the first thing you see in bright red? It says, note, do not ingest the Miracle Spring Water. What I did to my friends without knowledge of this caveat.
Told them to drink
this
it?
warning, I mixed us up vodka waters with the Miracle Spring Water. Presented to them in jest and manifested all of us miracles, or so I hoped. For fun, before we headed out for the night. There was not a warning 25 years ago to not ingest the Miracle Spring Water.
You don't have to worry about it. Most of these people over the years, I'm not speaking about him specifically because I know the law and I'm not going to do that, but I'm just saying it in general, okay? In general, so we're all covered here.
We're insured, don't worry.
Okay, we're all covered.
Yeah, we're insured.
In general, many people who sell medications that might be questionable, pills, miracles, water, whatever. Most of the time, there's nothing there but water or other things that cannot really hurt anybody, and that way they reduce liability, and their lawyers tell them to do that. And on the one hand, you've got the freedom to lie about all sorts of stuff that you're making claims for. On the other hand, you've got to make sure that you're not going to be paying for someone else's illness,
but
or
where
injury, and
where in life do we see
you give them nothing?
Where in life do we see warnings to not drink the water? Like it's basically like bathrooms on aircraft,
yes,
like airplane bathrooms, and Peter Popoff's Miracle Spring Water. Like where else can you
but
not?
But the warning's a gimmick, Ryan, because the warning
and maybe
the warning
reserves
is a
in Canada. I'm not trying to be funny.
to-
That's a serious point we should note.
No, I understand, but the warning, the so-called warning, is a gimmick to give people the impression that there's something powerful about this potion.
That's what I was just going to say.
Oh, so you're saying
because if you're selling just regular water, you don't want people to drink it because they're going to be like, they're going to realize
but
it.
But it's miracle water. Of course you should be able to drink it.
I mean, maybe, but man, we should do a whole
we're
show.
We're just gonna cut this whole thing out of the podcast.
You should be able to drink it, especially with alcohol.
We should do a whole show on, Robert Tilton and Jimmy Swaggart.
No, but seriously.
Who's the other guy? Who's the guy who...
No, we need to do a Real Talk roundtable.
Ted Haggard.
With
Remember Ted Haggard?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
With these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Put that right to the top of the working list.
The thing is that, whether we like to admit it or not, one of the reasons that so many people have such little faith in the media is because of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about CBS and CTV and Global and blah, blah, blah. It's about everybody that has access to the media, including some of these thumpers. And so when people got cynical about media, it happened many, many years ago. It's one of the reasons they're cynical. They watch these people on the media and they blame the entire media. And so you have millions of people in North America and around the world saying things like, you can't trust anybody. You can't trust anything that you see on TV, on video, radio, whatever, because they're all trying to hustle you, whether it's politically, financially. They're all in a game, and the game is not a good one.
Or they're trying to have sex with you. Like every single one of these pastors falls from grace either has to do with them stealing money or sex scandals. Every single one of them.
We haven't even talked about Jerry Falwell at Liberty University.
Yeah.
And like Jerry Falwell, remember Chuck, he was the one that said that he needed more planes, that God needed him to have more aircraft,
jets,
he needed more jets. Anyway, we do want to talk about a couple of things. I know we're like 40 minutes into this episode now, but is it okay that we get to the top?
All of the political
headlines?
all the political stuff we talk about that we're scheduled to talk about, all of it pales in comparison.
Oh yeah, nobody cares.
So I don't want to say the best of the show is over, folks.
Would you rather laugh at Miracle Spring Water, or would you rather get into an ethics report? No, but the only problem is though there might be Canadian cabinet ministers, MPs, maybe some senators that are on purpose providing, information with national security implications to bad actors, foreign interference.
That's the story, isn't it?
So it is kind of a story. So yes, it's actually a hell of a story.
It's juicy.
And we're going to get to that. Plus, we need to find out who is the other Randy when we're back with Charles Adler in literally 30 seconds. But I need to put something on your radar, and that is the fact that it is Alberta Pork Month right now. And Friesen Brothers is exclusively offering only fresh Alberta pork that's expertly cut in-store by their skilled butchers to honor and appreciate Alberta pork and its dedicated producers. Friesen Brothers is supporting the promos. June is Pork Month. And as part of this, they're offering loyal customers a chance to win a grill at each of their locations, by the way, with any purchase of fresh Alberta pork through June. You've got to be signed up as a Friesen Brothers loyalty member, but if you're not already, what are you even doing? Sign up immediately. One grill will be awarded at each of their 17 stores. You can find out more information online at friesen.com/barbecue season, BBQ season. That's at friesen.com. With all this talk I'm giving you, Johnny, about pork chops, baby back ribs, I
want my baby back.
Am I changing minds and changing hearts over there at the producer table?
Oh, it's the hardest time of the year for me. Barbecue season, all those smells.
Can I, if I were to slather, if I were to be next door to you and slather what's a good like zucchini's good on the barbecue,
it's
right?
Incredible.
Yeah. Like what can it give off the same?
Yeah, you can.
Can we? Yeah, we would try. I just want you to feel the love, brother. Who is the other Randy? This is a story involving the federal employment minister. He's appeared on this show many times. He is, a matter of fact, my member of parliament at Edmonton Centre, Randy Boissonneau. Mysterious text from a guy named Randy. He says they're not his. The heart of an ethics probe, reporting by virtually every outlet in Canada. Obviously, we're talking about it, into his business dealings. So, Chuck, basically, here's the deal for people that aren't up to speed. The employment minister, people will remember, had lost his job, lost an election to James Cummings. So he was out of politics for 4 years. During that time, he co-founded a business where he was one of the directors, right? He still owns half of the shares in that numbered company. It's a PPE companies, like things like masks and gloves and what have you. So Global News obtains these text messages. So here's the background for everybody. They show that there's a co-founder with Minister Boissonneau of GHI, which is Global Health Imports. Stephen Anderson, the co-founder. And in 2020, he transfers an urgent message from a guy named Randy to the principal of a PPE company. They needed a wire transfer of $500,000 to secure a large shipment of gloves. So says the text. Anderson, it's 15:14, 3:14 in the afternoon. It's 15:14 Eastern time. And it literally takes 10 seconds to complete a transfer. I'm telling you, we're not allocating like this. Please reach out and see what the reason is. You assured me this morning this was done and allowed you to hold this stock today. It's midday. Nothing is completed. It then talks to be ready. It asks Anderson to be ready in the text message from this Randy guy to be ready in 15 minutes for a partner call. Okay, so the implications here are that there's a PPE company with a federal cabinet minister associated with it. And while the cabinet minister is allegedly participating in the running of the business is completing deals. Like in some cases, what could be like 7-figure business deals, which obviously would stink to high heaven. So here's the thing. St. Albert MP, Michael Cooper, a conservative MP who just is like licking his chops at the thought of being able to nail Randy Boissonnault to the wall and to take the Edmonton Centre seat back for the Conservatives, has a chance during the House of Commons Ethics Committee hearing to ask Boissonnault about the other Randy. In other words, if it's not you in these text messages, who is it? And here's a portion of that exchange.
You have a 50% stake in the company. There's only a handful of people, and you presently have a 50% stake in GHI, and you mean to tell me that you have no idea out of a handful of people, if not you, who the other Randy is? Are you serious?
20 seconds. Go ahead, Minister.
I have had no operational involvement in this company since I was elected. The company has hired and probably let go people since I was there. I am not allowed to know about the operation of this company, Mr. Cooper, because it is not permitted by the Ethics Commissioner, and so I followed all the rules.
Thank you for that. Minister, that is nonsense, and you know it. But I'm going to go
It's not
to
nonsense,
the text.
Mr. Chair. That is
Mr.
not a fair statement. It's not nonsense. It is the truth.
Let him finish, please.
Sure.
Mr. Boissonnault. Go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
Minister, your answer simply doesn't add up. But there's more to it than that, because if it's some other Randy, then why did the Gowie Group believe that the Randy referenced in the text messages was you? Why?
15 seconds, Minister.
Mr. Chair, it would be inappropriate for me to have anything to do with operational matters. I stepped away from the company in the fall of 2022. Of course, I don't know who the employees are. And in the article today, it says that I am not that Randy.
In looking at the text message from Randy to Anderson, it states it's 15:14 Eastern Standard Time. This is a text to someone who is in Alberta in a text message about a client in California. What is 15:14 Eastern Time? Well, it happens to be the time zone of Ottawa. Just another coincidence, Randy?
I mean, I have no idea because I did not receive those texts, and I have no operational relationship to this company.
Be available
it's
for
a time zone
Mr. Cooper, just let
in
him
a text.
respond, please.
It's a time zone in a text that I have nothing to do with.
Well,
Mr. Anderson has said that's not
it's
me.
another
Mr. Gowie,
piece.
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
Cooper,
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
I am
Cooper.
not being
Doesn't add up.
interrupted.
Mr. Cooper, he's got like 8 seconds. Let him respond, please. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you,
Boissonnault, and then
Mr.
you can
Chair.
ask your next
I am
question.
not the Randy in question. Mr. Anderson has indicated that I'm not the Randy in question, and the Gowie Group has said they've had no communication
Mr. Cooper,
with me.
go ahead.
And so not only Eastern Time, Ottawa, also be available in 15 for a partner call. You said you had previously been a partner. Just another coincidence? Just another Randy?
Okay. So, how bad is this, Chuck, for Randy Boissonnault? How bad is this potentially? It's their employment minister for the federal Liberal government.
Is Cooper a lawyer?
Cooper used to staff Brent Rathgaber, who was the Conservative MP in St. Albert, and Rathgaber's a lawyer. I'm not sure if Cooper's a lawyer. He might be, actually.
Okay, because Cooper may be a lawyer, but he may not be anything but a mediocre lawyer, because even a mediocre lawyer would find a way of being able to interview, and you've got a parliamentary position, so you've got some authority with that committee, interview a couple of people and directly examine and cross-examine them to find out who Randy is. And then once you know who Randy is, then you know whether or not you're on thin ice. But to expect this particular Randy to testify against himself is something most excellent lawyers wouldn't do or wouldn't have any high expectations of. I mean, why doesn't Cooper or the committee, Poilievre, whoever, why don't the Conservatives do some homework to discover who Randy is?
Okay, by the way, Michael Cooper called to the Alberta Bar in 2010 prior to being elected. He worked as a civil litigator. So reads his bio at a leading Edmonton law firm. So in fact, he is a lawyer. But
you should know better. Shouldn't need instructions from me on how to do his job.
Sure, but he's not the one in the hot seat right now. Randy Boissonneau's the one in the hot seat.
No, but Ryan, I mean, you and I are no different. We like to ask questions that we know the answers to. And if Cooper knew the answer to who Randy is, and if Randy is indeed Randy Boissonneau, if he brought proof to the table instead of just talk show host questions, I think he'd be a lot better off.
Yeah,
but if you're asking me we'll get beyond that. If you're asking me whether this looks bad on Randy Boissonneau,
it looks bad.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, it looks very bad. Johnny's over here chuckling, and I know
and I see Michael Barrett. He's calling for the other Randy to testify.
Okay,
so he wants the Conservatives want the other Randy to testify and appear before June 18th before they take further steps. But
and this isn't something where the company can't run out and just hire a Randy.
No. And
because that's perjury, right? I don't think.
But I'm just saying that based on my knowledge of stuff, including law, it would not be difficult for a real lawyer to find out in a really short space of time who received the text and who the Randy is.
Well, because I suspect he already knows who it is. I suspect he's pointing this out to us that he already knows who it is. I guess he just thought that sort of Boissonneau was going to convict himself there.
That's what I thought. Can't you just get a cell phone record and boom, whole thing is over?
I mean, it's all very easily solvable here. The question is, does it do any damage to the Liberal brand? I think it's kind of federally. I won't say it's a non-story because it's not a non-story. It's a story. It is a story. Yeah. I mean, it could be the difference maker in the Edmonton Centre riding, which for people that maybe haven't paid too much or close attention to it, you and I have discussed it before. We don't have to go in the weeds. But James Cumming is coming back. Former president of Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, obviously a very successful businessman and a former Conservative MP. He's coming back. He's hungry. He wants that seat back. And Tricia Estabrooks, former chair of Edmonton's Public School Board, is running for the NDs in that riding. So you have it's going to be a slugfest. And all it takes, man, if you can swing 500 to 1,000 votes on something, that can swing the entire election in a riding like that.
So I'm not in the business of consulting the Conservatives, but if I were, I would tell James Cummings to go to a lawyer, any lawyer, even a mediocre lawyer can do this for him, and change his name from James to Randy. Confuse the voters. It always works.
No, because then he could come up with Conservative branding, and his billboard could be elect the other Randy. Actually, elect honest Randy. Oh, this is an incredible idea.
Yeah.
Actually, and I think that if I remember correctly,
I'm not known for giving my ideas away for free. I almost feel skinned for doing this, but in the interest of this show and real talk in the audience, there you go.
I don't think
elect the honest Randy.
I don't think, and if memory serves, I could be talking out of my ass here, but if memory serves correct, it is an open nomination in that riding. I do believe for the Conservatives. I don't believe that Cumming has it guaranteed. I mean, he virtually has it guaranteed. I don't know who'd run against him.
Well, if you live in
there's a Randy,
if you live in Edmonton Centre and you're a Conservative, or at least you lean Conservative, or you want the Liberals to be defeated,
just want the paycheck.
Run against Mr. Cummings if your name is Randy.
Yeah, the other Randy. I think that this is a brilliant idea.
We have another clip, right? So
yeah. Well, I mean, I just thought this was follow up. I think this was June 5th.
Yeah.
So this was after that exchange. So Michael Cooper takes us back now. So now this is in the House. Now this is all the MPs are together, and here's how Michael Cooper. Hang on a sec. So let me just tee this up as well. So you're going to hear from Michael Cooper, and then you're also going to hear from the Liberal government House leader, and it's just anyway. Well, decide for yourself. Here it is.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course, Canada has among the toughest, most stringent ethics and conflict of interest provisions in the world for public office holders. The minister in question appeared yesterday before committee for 1 hour and answered all of those questions.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert Edmonton.
Speaker, there is no trace of Randy. Global News can't find him. The COO claims there is Randy, but conveniently has forgotten his last name. And the minister can't identify him among a handful of employees. This is a farce. Everyone knows who Randy is. Will the minister just stand up and admit it's him?
The COO of the company with like...
Okay, it's me. I can't take it anymore. It's me. My name is Randy.
There's like 5 employees. I don't even know how many employees there are in the company. There's like 5 employees in the company. And the chief operating officer can't remember the last name of the other Randy. Like, it's just, honestly, I don't... Like,
There's 5 people.
It's just... It's honestly stories like this. I just love stories like this, and I understand it's uncomfortable for some people, in particular Randy Boissonnault, people connected to Randy Boissonnault, etc. But I just like this is honestly one of the funniest story. There's nothing funny about like patronage, and there's nothing funny about the government. If government funds are going to businesses where there's involvement of I mean that's obviously a huge deal. But like this whole thing about the other Randy and nobody can it's just one of my favorite stories of the year right now.
As we like to say here in the True North, strong and free, he's on thin ice.
He's on very thin ice. Very nicely done. Before we go, and this is kind of reiterating what a lot of people are saying is a real problem with the media coverage on this story. So I am part of the problem. This is not on you, Charles, but not a lot of Canadians. There's not a lot of outrage. There doesn't seem to be a lot of discernible concern around this report. Almost 100 pages from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians around foreign interference that basically suggests that elected officials and potentially senators in Canada have been providing sensitive information to foreign actors, in particular in India, essentially manifesting foreign interference in Canadian elections and the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada and the like. I've seen some commentators, including Andrew Coyne, who's been particularly outspoken about this, talking about how it absolutely blows his mind that more people aren't making a bigger deal out of this, or that this isn't a bigger story in Canada right now. It could be that this report is just simmering, and ultimately we'll see the national attention, give it the scrutiny that many people say that it deserves. But where are you at with the findings of this report right now? Any particular surprises?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's in the interests of the country for anybody to name somebody who could be immediately under attack, threatened. So I don't think there's any reason to put someone at risk unless there's absolute proof. However, there needs to we're a country that believes in process, and there needs to be a process to determine what the truth of this story is, whether it's just somebody ratting somebody out, whether it's someone just saying something. I think I said this. I think I saw what I said and said what I saw, blah, 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 blah. So if this is based on something beyond hearsay, and there is a foundation of what we like to call evidence, then I do think that a special prosecutor or someone with another title, but someone who has prosecutorial capacity needs to take a look at this. And if someone needs to be prosecuted for a crime, including treason, then it ought to happen. But if there isn't a process in place, if it just becomes a lot of blah, blah, conservatives versus liberals, then I think we've got a problem. What's interesting about this is that Pierre Poilievre might know more about this if only he had security clearance. It's still questionable as to why he still has refused to go for security clearance. The other thing that's interesting is that every time Poilievre asks a question about this, he's in a much more low-key state than he generally is. So I don't know what he knows or what he thinks he knows, and maybe what he thinks he knows might even be embarrassing to the Conservative Party. I don't know, and my name isn't Randy, but something is very fishy here, and it doesn't take someone with the mind of Andrew Coyne to suggest that it needs to be investigated.
Well, I'm disappointed that I'm going to have to go find the other Randy to get additional comments on this. Johnny's showing us a release from MP Michael Cooper.
We figured it out.
The other Randy. It's Randy Boissonnault wearing like the Monopoly man's sunglasses and mustache.
Thank you, Detective Johnny.
Yeah.
For that.
So here's the thing: is like basically what we're talking about is treason, right? That is what this is, right? Big word invoked on purpose. There's 430. MPs and senators, none of them named in this report. So now you have to assume that it's fair for Canadians to wonder, like, whom of the 430 is it? So it kind of like cast out on all of them. And if it is indeed treason, which it I think you can make the strong argument that's exactly what we're talking about. Then I would think that you would have the prime minister, the leader of the official opposition, and the leader of every other party conducting their own investigations into their own parties, and for Parliament to take this over and to take this very seriously. And here's what I'll just put to Real Talkers. At this stage, with the understanding that we have, if we don't see that out of Ottawa with all parties on board, then it's time to ask some serious questions around why not. What are they trying to hide? What are they trying to protect? What do they know? What don't they want to get out?
Well, I think it's the kind of thing that requires an independent investigation, one that people trust, because you can talk about the Conservatives ought to do theirs and the Liberals ought to do theirs, the NDP ought to, that's all nice and fair and Canadian, but you really need a serious investigator to do a Detective Johnny on this to find out what's true and what is perhaps simply hearsay. What I don't agree with is the idea of just lifting the name out of those pages and throwing it out there. I don't like the idea of that being done to people. You can create a lot of damage for them and their families. You put them in extremely compromised positions. I think a serious investigation is the way to go. This is a serious charge, and it's a serious country.
Charles Adler appears the first episode of every week right here on Real Talk, courtesy of our friends at Tice Automotive Consulting. Good to see you, brother. We'll talk to you again in a week.
Thank you.
You got it. Detective Johnny, were you able to track down, I was trying to remember here at Relay, the big company that we are, that employee Randy of ours.
Yeah.
Were you able to track it? I just want to make sure he got paid last payroll.
I don't know who drank all of the
Miracle Spring Water?
Miller High Lifes from the fridge, but I do remember there was another Johnny who worked here previously.
Who is the other Johnny?
And I know we have a lot of off-site members on our team.
Yeah.
Close to 3.
We do.
And there's probably another Johnny.
Yeah, we could find another Johnny if we found ourselves in hot water and needed to get you off the
story. Hook. And I love Randy. He comes on here. Randy's been a
great friend of the show. That doesn't mean
that is not good.
Like just because you're available to the show doesn't mean we're like not going to talk about pretty high profile stories when you find yourself in hot water.
I'm just saying it's unexpected, and I was like, wow.
It is a
wow.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough look. We'll see where it goes, but there's everything competing for people's attention. This could also be the type of thing where the story just, if they can't prove anything, right? Or if the Conservatives find that there's something meatier that they can sink their teeth into. You can let us know what you think about this by sending us an email anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We wrap this episode, a weekly tradition, courtesy of our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy. We have a chance to step outside the news cycle. Even the other Randy story. No, I'm sorry. We're stepping. No. We're stepping outside the news cycle to focus on the positive. And this is an awesome one. This is an email in this edition of Positive Reflections. An email from Alex. She writes in to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Says, Jespo, Johnny, I'm Alex, a 17-year-old grade 12 student who's been struggling with climate anxiety for a while now. And you guys were ranking. Alex is talking about our episode on June the 7th. This was our good news for people with climate anxiety, our Real Talk Roundtable, including just an incredible junior high school aged innovator. But back to Alex's email. Says, I've been struggling with climate anxiety for a while. You guys were ranking where you're at with climate anxiety from 1 to 10. Honestly, says Alex, I've probably been at least an 8 for quite a while now, and I often feel overwhelmed by the dire news about our planet's future. But I listened to your June 7th roundtable with the Climate Action Figures podcasters that gave me a glimmer of hope. And in particular, I loved how that junior high student Arian's incredible innovations are happening right now in the fight against microplastics. How cool that he's from Calgary, by the way, says Alex. Hearing him talk about his invention made me realize that while challenges are huge, so is human ingenuity. Check it out. I'm showing you on the screen right now what he's doing. You got to watch this episode. If you didn't learn more about it, Alex explains to us how his invention works, and so cool. We have the creativity, says Alex, the determination to turn things around. And hearing about these advancements reminded me that change is possible, and it's being driven by passionate people all over the world, including right here in Alberta. And it gave me hope that if we all keep pushing for solutions and supporting sustainable practices, we can all make a real difference. So, to my fellow Real Talkers, says 17-year-old Alex, let's stay informed, let's stay hopeful, and keep fighting for our planet. She signs off, by the way, Alex, a Gen Zer.
We got another scientist.
Yeah, we got another scientist. I love this, right?
Coming up.
And another Gen Zer.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, we do have invention coming up on the show, and we love to celebrate these types of stories. If there's something in in your life, in your orbit, maybe it's a random act of kindness, somebody paid it forward, maybe there's something happening in your community that you think is a perfect fit for positive reflections, send us a note to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's presented every week by our good friends at Kuby Renewable Energy. Thanks for catching this episode of Real Talk. We're back at it tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Kandola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.